To the running backs we go, and up top, Christian McCaffrey. He's just going to be a yes. He's the most expensive player on the slate. I have him for 22.5 fantasy points, my highest projected running back right now. McCaffrey, if you're just looking at this matchup, it's a positive 15% run blocking advantage for him. It is a tough matchup against what is a borderline top 5 run defense of Washington, but it's Christian McCaffrey, 10 catches, 66 yards last week. There is some concern with Cam Newton. You know, he came in last week for the goal line touchdown. Can he vulture McCaffrey? Yes, because in 2019, when McCaffrey had his 15 rushing touchdown season, Cam Newton played 2 games. He was banged up. In 2018, the year before McCaffrey blew up, he had 7 rushing touchdowns that year with Cam Newton. So it's definitely possible. And that was in a not as crazy role as he's had in 2019 and in the previous 2 years when he's actually healthy. So there is definitely some concern there. The bigger issue is value. We don't really have insane value receivers. We'll get to that. Unless Jeffrey Wilson pops up as a value if Elijah Mitchell is ruled out, there's not insane like $4,000 running back values. There's a couple of 5K, a couple of low 6K guys, but enough value, especially in the stacks when you see how expensive Dak stacks, Mahomes stacks, and Josh Allen stacks are this week. It's really difficult to get to McCaffrey, but the man's just a walking 25 plus points. He didn't even have a bonus last week. He's had 41 fantasy points since returning the last 2 weeks without a bonus, without a touchdown. So that is all coming. And the 40-point smash week for McCaffrey is also coming. And when that happens, you probably have to have him to win. So yes, he's a yes for me. Dalvin Cook is more of a leverage play. I don't think the Vikings, as always, are going to be that highly owned. Now that he's more expensive, people, if they get up to that range, I think that they probably go, honestly, Jonathan Taylor. I think that they're normally just staying in the 7K range or 6K range. Or if they're in that range, they're going all the way up to a Christian McCaffrey or pivoting to different position, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill. So I think that Dalvin Cook, who always has success against the Packers who are stopping the run and tackling well, DeAndre Campbell, Barnett, their linebackers, the best linebacker core they've had in a while there, Dalvin Cook is looking like a good leverage. Like, I don't think you get a lot of ownership here. 24-point team total or so, slight underdogs. I think that he's good. A yes might be an overstatement, but I only have Dalvin Cook projecting out right now for about 10% ownership, and I think that number drops as the week goes on. James Robinson, he has a new injury in practice as of Wednesday. Track this news if he's out by the time you're watching this. Obviously, don't put him in play, but this man is never owned. He was like 8% on last week. What does he do? He gets his 5th straight start that he's played the full game of over 18 DraftKings points. Lovely, with a lot of those being over 20, with over 20 opportunities per game right now. During that stretch of 5 completed games, I only have James Robinson on my ownership projections on Patreon. You can check out my ownership and all that I offer. Optimizer, Discord, projections, ranks, all that. The ownership being massive leverage. If you don't have ownership projections, you're really, really with a huge leg down in these tournaments. But James Robinson, I only have him projecting out for 6% ownership. He is my number 4 running back play on the slate, point per dollar wise, with 6% ownership. Clearly a smash. Now, the best running back play on the slate is somebody that I don't care what the ownership is. It will not get high enough this week. I have A.J. Dillon right now projecting out for 20% ownership. That might seem like he's the chalk. Of course he is, but that's not high enough. A.J. Dillon, I will not be fading him until he starts to hit 35% ownership or so. And here's a spoiler alert for you, because there's a lot of other good running back plays around him. And just in general, this is a 12-game slate, not a 10 or 8-game slate. He is not going to hit 35% ownership. He might hit 24%. 20% I think is his high number, to be honest with you. I have A.J. Dillon right now for 18.2 fantasy points, and that's with me trying to be really conservative on that. This man is seeing 11.5 opportunities per game in games where he's the backup to Aaron Jones, who's seeing 17 opportunities per game. Now those 17 opportunities per game are gone. Kylan Hill, the 3rd string, is on IR. It's just A.J. Dillon, Patrick Taylor from Memphis, who barely has any use in the NFL. They're going to trust A.J. Dillon here. And look at the week that he gets to do it. He comes in as a 2.5-point favorite with a 26-point team total in a divisional matchup where he has a positive 34% run blocking advantage. One of the best matchups on the entire week against a bottom third of the league Minnesota defense, run defense. Everything checks out for A.J. Dillon. He has 18 targets in 10 games as a backup running back. He is right now top 5 in so many in the limited snaps he's had. Top 5 in yards per route and run against running backs. Top 5 in yards after the catch and all this stuff, right? He looks great. Yards per route run is a great metric as well. He looks really good. He looks a lot better as a receiver than he did in college, and he's 250 plus pounds, and he's a monster just athleticism wise. Everything looks good for A.J. Dillon. I'm going to be playing him. Let's just hope the guy stays healthy. You slide down to one of the major reasons why A.J. Dillon is probably not going to be highly owned, and that's because James Conner is also going to pick up ownership. Especially if Kyler Murray returns, you can expect James Conner, who's my number 3 play on the slate, picking up 15% projected ownership as of right now, to be owned. I mean, James Conner is going to go out there. He's going to project for 16 to 18 touches in this game as a favorite against Seattle, who has a very good run defense, a top 5 run defense. But like last week, A.J. Dillon faced that Seattle team. He had over 100 total yards because of his receiving work, and he found the end zone twice. So you can still get there even if they're good in between the tackles. Conner, he's just been the full workhorse. 76 and 77% of the snaps the last 2 weeks. You know, Benjamin is not threatening him, the second-year player. It's Conner's backfield. 14 opportunities in the worst game environment. We were getting blown out last week. Still saw over 75% of the snaps. Still was in the game late. James Conner, 12 touchdowns leading the league this year. He looks good. The problem is I prefer A.J. Dillon. Now you get to these value plays a little bit right here at the running back position. So this is where I want to talk to you about just where the potential value may lie. And it starts with David Montgomery. And here's the big thing for David Montgomery. Most weeks, like if Aaron Jones was healthy this week, if Chase Edmonds was healthy this week, most weeks, a $5,500 David Montgomery, who, by the way, is 4th in the NFL, not 1, not 2, not 3. Shout out LeBron James. 4th in the NFL in opportunity share, meaning that this guy has used a ton in his offense, right? Absolutely a ton. He comes back in his first game on a Monday Night Football game where they said he's going to be limited and plays a season high 85% of the snaps, 15 touches, 80 yards against a good Pittsburgh Steelers team. And then he gets a bye week, an entire week to rest since then. This guy's going to come in fully ready to go. I'm sorry, Khalil Herbert, the rookie. I liked him in preseason. I liked him for the past couple of weeks, especially in my season-long league. But sorry, it's the David Montgomery show. Most weeks, David Montgomery would be the 20+% owned running back because he's so cheap. How is he 5,500? David Montgomery should realistically be 6,500 this week. He has a positive 30% run blocking advantage, right? Against a bottom half of the league Baltimore run defense that ranks, 27th out of 32 teams in tackling. And what is David Montgomery known for coming out of college? Breaking motherfucking tackles, right? So David Montgomery, normally going to be highly owned. This week, he's going to pick up ownership, no doubt about it. But I have Montgomery currently coming in with just 12% ownership. So he's not picking up a lot. Why is that? Everybody in that same price range is going to A.J. Dillon for a couple $100 more, is going to James Conner for a couple $100 more. And they're also going to the guy you see on the screen right now in the YouTube version, Myles Gaskin at 5,700, mainly because of his matchup and the usage that he's getting. Myles Gaskin these last 2 weeks has 34 carries, and his total yards with his receiving yards is just barely 100 yards at this point, 102 yards. His carries on the ground are not working out that great, but he did have a 6-reception game against Houston. Myles Gaskin, I mean, Salvon Ahmed is a lot more involved than people actually know. Like Myles Gaskin, 2 out of his last 3 weeks, he's failed to even top 8.5 fantasy points. So that's not good. But Myles Gaskin right now is picking up 15% ownership. There is no way in hell I'm going to Myles Gaskin. I get it that the matchup is really good. No way in hell that I'm going to a higher owned Myles Gaskin who is more expensive than David Montgomery, who is also in a really good matchup and is going to be utilized more in his offense, right? David Montgomery is going to have a higher opportunity share with his other running back Khalil Herbert than Myles Gaskin in the Salvon Ahmed split. So I know the matchup is really good, but ownership matters here. So Myles Gaskin for me is not a yes. He's going to grade out as a good value, like a top 5 value for me, but Montgomery is my number 2 value on the slate. So if this ownership holds, Montgomery is the play that I'm going to in the 5K range over Myles Gaskin. The only other guy who comes into consideration is a man we talked a lot about, and that is Daryl Williams. I think Daryl Williams is a great play. The team total is 10 points higher than the Bears and David Montgomery, so that's enough right there to just show touchdown upside a lot more. Right now I have Daryl Williams as my number 7 overall value. I have about 2 more fantasy points projected for David Montgomery, but also looks like a solid play. So I prefer Daryl Williams and David Montgomery to Myles Gaskin this week, which does not seem like what the industry is doing. That's fine if you want to go and take advantage fully of the matchup against the Jets. I wouldn't be shocked to see Salvon Ahmed outproduce Myles Gaskin this week. My final yes is going to be DeAndre Swift. Jamal Williams, I'm currently projecting him to play, but Jamal Williams didn't even practice all of last week. We'll track the reports this week. If Jamal Williams is out, you have a new offensive coordinator, or the head coach is taking over for the offensive coordinator role now in Detroit, and that man wants to run even more than Anthony Lynn wanted to run. And you saw that last week for the first time with 33 carries in overtime for Swift, still saw 6 targets, and his price point doesn't change. Maybe it went up $200. I think it was $7K last week. So that flat price of $7K probably keeps his ownership a little bit lower. It is a tough matchup. It is a terrible team total here, but if you're going to get 25 opportunities out of Swift, who's athletic, who saw a lot of broken tackles, 7 broken tackles last week, just on the ground alone, not even counting the receiving game work, Swift starts to become like he's priced around that range that is James Conner, and he's priced around that range that is A.J. Dillon, except he's more expensive. People are going to flock below him to that price point. If they're going to go to the 7K range, he's kind of in this no man's land where people are just going to go all the way up to McCaffrey. So I think Swift finds himself in a dead range that doesn't pick up much ownership. Jonathan Taylor, Nick Chubb, Zeke, these guys are also in play. I think Nick Chubb is the sneakiest of all those guys if his ownership remains low. Right now it's coming in at around 14%, so at that point I don't really feel the need to get there. But Chubb, 10-point favorite, 27 implied team total against Detroit. No Kareem Hunt still. Obviously, everything there stands out as a smash spot. Just the price point makes it a little bit more difficult to start to fit him in at 7,800, and I would prefer Dalvin Cook at, right now, lower ownership. So that's the running back position. I feel like that was a, pat yourselves on the back, everybody. Crack your knuckles. Take a break here. Nice little breakdown of the running backs. I actually had this idea to make a clips channel, and I would have another channel, the Sal Vetri clips channel or something along those lines, and I would clip the quarterbacks talking discussions from this video. That's like 7 minutes. Clip the running backs, which is like 7 minutes. The wide receivers, and just have all different clips. If people just want to watch that clip, it's more digestible, more viewership, right? So it's interesting. I would have to start from 0 on a separate clips channel though, but it's interesting. I also don't have the time. So if there's any video editors out there watching this right now and don't care to just take videos down and just clip them and then send them back to me or post them on my behalf on that second YouTube channel, we can see there's an opportunity there for maybe discussing discussing some stuff. But I don't want to give myself too much work these days. I feel really nice and balanced at where my head is at mentally, physically. But we'll see. It's an interesting idea, I think. So we slide now into the wide receiver position, and there you go. There's a little like button for you. Appreciate you all a ton. Come join the Patreon community if you're not already. All right. I mean, I don't know why you're not up in here. The community, not only to all the perks that you get at industry low prices, because like I said, I'm just a one-man band here, but you also get the Discord of 100,000 plus members where everybody's chilling out, relaxing, maxing all cool. I see I got 2 Discord messages right now we're going to answer. It's a lovely time. You talk about the games, you talk about plays, you talk about just in general strategy. It's a lovely time. It's a great community of like-minded people. I don't personally have any friends in the real world that play DFS. I had a couple acquaintances at college, but I don't keep in touch. So I don't have any friends that in the real world play DFS, right? So it's nice to have that Discord of people of like-minded betting, all that type of stuff. It's cool.